The mage traveling with them does not feel good about the situation. He stays at the back of the group looking around nervously. He asks if it is really okay to move so suddenly. Adrian replies that dragging things out will not help them, and they need to end the war quickly, even if it is risky, so they can keep their strength and enjoy victory. The mage worries that the plan seems too impulsive. Adrian ignores him and thinks that although he had planned to take a safer path, the intelligence reports kept bothering him. He reasons that if this mission were unimportant, the Crown Prince and the Royal Guard would not have been sent to the dangerous Dragonland, which means the risk must be worth it. He also thinks that even if it is reckless, they must finish everything before the Crown Prince returns. Then he looks back and assures the mage not to worry, saying that sneaking in and taking down the enemy leader is his speciality. The mage lets out a nervous laugh. At that moment, the Croissant Emperor activates something called Mortal Mode, and a powerful aura fills the room where Adrian and the others stand. Everyone is surprised and the mage cries out in shock. Marquis James looks around and says that it seems the intruder elimination system has been activated. Adrian agrees, noting that powerful magic is coming from every direction. As he analyzes the surroundings, he realizes the place is like hell itself. After completing his analysis, he tells the group that there are 5 layers of the intruder elimination system inside the palace. Shocked, the mage repeats that there are 5 levels. Adrian cheerfully instructs Archa and Marquis James to use their spirit swords to destroy the points he designates. They both agree and strike at different spots in the room. When the first barrier is destroyed, Adrian announces with joy that stage 1 is clear. The mage, surprised, asks if it is already done, and then remarks that it was easier than expected. The masked man looks around and wonders if they might pass through without much trouble. Adrian, now serious, warns them that stage 2 is coming and tells them to retreat if they cannot endure it. The mage and masked man react in shock. The second barrier, called the 8th Circle Mind Collapse, begins its attack. Struggling, Marquis James tries to speak, but Adrian quickly lifts both the mage and the masked man with his magic and explains that it is a mental attack. He calls for Archa, who picks up Marquis James and Elder Iris and replies that she is ready. They all rush toward the exit and Adrian tells them they must break through before anyone loses their sanity. After a while they reach the end and set down their collapsed teammates, who wake up gasping for breath. Adrian declares that stage 2 is clear. Marquis James, still shocked, asks how Adrian and Archa managed to stay fine. Adrian only smirks and says it is a secret. The masked man lying on the ground recalls that the two of them had also been unaffected by August's mind attack earlier. In that memory, when August tried to attack them mentally, nothing happened. Archa had said she was getting hungry and asked if they should just finish their enemies, and Adrian told her to wait a little longer. Later they arrive at the place where the third trial begins, an 8th circle labyrinth filled with endless stairs and paths. Adrian cheerfully says that the next challenge is the labyrinth zone and tells everyone to rest while he prepares to teleport them again. As before, Archa carries Marquis James and Adrian carries the other two. While moving through the maze, Adrian thinks that without great attack power or sharp analysis, anyone would wander endlessly and die inside this bottomless hell. But to him, with his all-seeing eye, it is nothing more than a complicated path. Floating the group with his magic, he runs forward joyfully and gives directions to go straight and then make a U-turn 20 meters ahead. Archa coldly remarks that there is a lot to see and that it seems like a nice place for a walk. The two people Adrian is carrying look miserable. Finally, he announces that stage 3 is clear. They reached the door and Adrian told everyone that they were almost there and should get ready. The mage, feeling dizzy, said he couldn't believe they were breaking through the famous Croissant Palace so quickly. Adrian closed his eyes and reminded himself that they couldn't relax yet because the two remaining barriers were the 8th Circle Inferno and the 8th Circle Blizzard. The mage was shocked and asked if those were among the most powerful fire and ice spells known. Adrian confirmed it and said that even if they used 8th Circle magic themselves, it was uncertain whether they could break through. But he added that they fortunately had a strong defense method. The mage, both surprised and curious, asked what that was. Adrian replied that it was the strongest shield that had once withstood bombardment from hundreds of sky fortresses. Marignung. Archa then held up Elder Iris. Confused, Elder Iris made a small sound and while being lifted asked Adrian what he was doing. Adrian replied that he was counting on her as their shield. She yelled in protest. Soon after, a huge fire circle surrounded them and Elder Iris used cold water magic to protect everyone. The magic, called Spatial Flow, formed a massive transparent blue shield that blocked the fire attacks. Archa kept using Elder Iris as if she were a tool. Adrian calmly watched and said it was magnificent while Iris screamed angrily at them. The group completed stage 4, though the atmosphere turned awkward and Elder Iris was completely worn out. Marquis James admired the result and asked if Adrian had planned everything. Adrian smiled and said their precaution just happened to work well. As Archa tended to Elder Iris and wiped her head, Elder Iris muttered that she must be insane for trying to take advantage of the Croissant Empire only to end up being used as a towel, a scarf, and now a shield. Adrian told them to move on to the next stage and Elder Iris responded weakly. As her voice faded away, they entered stage 5, Frozen Hell. Elder Iris screamed that stage 4 had been cleared. In the throne room, the ministers of the Croissant Empire shouted in panic that Adrian's group was about to break through stage 5 as well. They wondered if the goddess had finally abandoned their empire. Emperor Croissant was shocked to see the enemy clearing his traps so easily. He called for the Minister of War, who appeared trembling, and ordered him to stay and command the palace troops. The minister obeyed. A ring on the emperor's finger reported that spatial teleportation was impossible, and the emperor realized that the enemy had set up an anti-teleportation field. He then ordered his vanguards to use the emergency passage. Some terrified ministers begged to follow him, pleading for mercy, but the emperor ignored them and fled. Adrian appeared behind the fleeing ministers and asked where they were going. He then used his magic staff to cast a fire spell, burning all the ministers who had followed the emperor. The emperor turned around terrified and recognized Adrian as Duke Lawrence. Adrian and his party approached, and Adrian politely said it was an honor to meet the Emperor of Croissant. The emperor asked what had happened to the Minister of War. Adrian replied that if the minister had stood in their way he would probably be among the dead, since Adrian had been killing every noble and soldier he encountered without keeping track. The emperor, enraged, called him an insolent and rude man. 2 vanguards in high-level armor charged forward to attack, but Adrian calmly said that a dying man did not deserve any more courtesy. The emperor looked at him in shock before his head suddenly fell, blood spilling everywhere. Adrian bid him farewell. Later a hooded man appeared with the Croissant prince and a guard. The guard led them down a corridor showing the way. The Croissant prince smiled wickedly and thought to himself that his father should wait, for he, Andre, would now take his place.